we have here is the half-broken PC board. I'm gonna solder in the jumpers, as you can see here. Let me go ahead and turn on my iron. Only takes a second to get hot. And what I recommend for you to do is to take some snips, as you see here, from some old resistors or capacitors, or even some new parts that you have laying around that you know that you're not going to use that much. You can snip some off. What you're going to do is you're going to bend it, and right here in the paper you can see, without my drawing, that you have these jumpers soldered all around here. And what this does is this creates, pretty much this is just all conductive together. This is all conductive together, and this center bridge right here, this little T, is all together along with these three here. So what you're going to do is take your little snippings, and you want to stick them through the hole. Make sure you cut them. If you want to notice here, there's not much sticking out. You don't want a whole lot sticking out this high, so when you put it in your case, it's going to short out to the bottom of the metal, or even if you have a pad, it could poke through. So what you want to do is go ahead and test fit it. If it's too long, pull it out. Use some little snips here, cut off the little snippings, put it in there. And the method that I use is putting it in here and folding out these pieces sideways, like this, so it'll hold it. And that way, you don't have to have anything underneath holding it, or you don't have to use your finger here and it's wiggling around and whatnot. Alternately, you can use like a little business card here, like I have, and I put it underneath it and I clip it on these two clips here. And what that does is it enables you to, instead of bending these out, it'll give you a straight shot, so you won't have to have these crooked. As you can look here, they're all crooked. You won't have them crooked like that. Well, soldering's iron hot, so we're gonna go ahead. Let me set the camera over here. Let me see if I can solder this for you and give you a little bit of soldering tips. Alright, so here I got my iron. It's a Radio Shack digital iron. I don't know. Works pretty well. What you want to do when you're soldering, no matter if you're using like a $5 Radio Shack soldering iron or a $100 one like here, you always want to clean your tip. From the moment that you turn it on, the tip will start to oxidize. What you need to do is you need to wipe it off on a wet sponge, like I'm doing here. You probably can't see. Wipe it off on a wet sponge. Go ahead and tin it and wipe it off one more time, and then just lightly dab it on there. That way you have just enough to coat the whole tip. That way it won't oxidize. Anytime this thing is hot, it's going to oxidize really quick. So what you need to do is keep this tip tinned. Every time you go and you make a solder, you bring it back, wipe it off, and tin it. And if you're not going to be making a solder for a while, go ahead and turn your iron off, no matter how long it takes to heat up, because when this thing is hot, it's going to burn this solder and it's going to oxidize. And once you get oxidized, it won't wet the tip and it won't conduct heat through the components very well. So what you need to do is keep this tip clean. If you're not going to use it in a while, turn it off. Alright, so back to soldering. What we're going to do right here is we're going to make a little wedge. We're not going to take it and pour the solder on here and try to dip it off onto here, because it won't stick properly, because what we're trying to solder isn't heated up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it and pinch it on the side of the PC board, the little copper and the little component. What we're going to do is just slide this in right here, not touching the tip, but just slide it in right here. And hold it there, move your solder, and bring it back. What we did there is we pinched the copper on the PC board and the little jumper, wire jumper that we have from the little snips from the little resistors or whatever, and we pushed that together. So we heated up the little snip and the PC board, and we took the rosin-filled solder and we brought it in and just touched the center and the PC board, and it melted. And you move the solder away because you don't want to get it too much, and you hold the heat there until it wets and it spreads just right, and then you pull it back. So we're going to do that one more time after we go ahead and wipe it off on the sponge, get all the solder off, re-tin it. And we're going to go ahead and do that one more time. That's probably hard for you to see. Yeah, sorry about the video here, but maybe I'll turn it a bit more. Alright, what we're going to do is we're going to pinch it Go ahead and tin it a little bit more. We're going to pinch it right in between it. Hold it there for just a few seconds. Touch it, hold it, let go. Squeak as that. If your soldering, if your joint takes longer than that, your tip is probably not clean enough, and you're probably not getting enough heat transfer, and you could risk damaging whatever you're soldering. If it'd be a capacitor resistor, you could heat it up too much and could damage it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is finish up soldering all these little jumpers to make this little configuration. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 jumpers with these two side ones here. Here we have our PC board with all of our little jumpers soldered in, and I just wanted to show you what this looks like. I avoided soldering these in because later in the tutorial I will show you how to make these M or S jumpers as I use. A little complicated, and I'll walk you through that. What we're going to do now is just check it out, make sure that there's nothing contacting across. You look down this little line, you make sure that they're not running over. Make sure you have some good clean solders, nice and glossy. Make sure that you look for fractures. Make sure it doesn't look fractured as if you snipped it off after you soldered it or you bent it or something like that. That can cause a bad joint and it won't conduct electricity properly. Looks good. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to solder in our capacitors. Our electrolytic capacitors. What that means is our capacitors are like ionized, and they have a positive and negative lead. Just on the LEDs, the longer lead is going to be the positive, and the negative one is going to be the shorter one. But just in case you snip these, prematurely, you can always identify the negative lead by this little, well, not little, it's pretty long, silver marking. Every electrolytic capacitor has it. Alright, as you notice here, I'm using some 1000 UF, which 1000, like, I guess, farads, 25 volt. I recommend you use the one that tangentsoft.net tutorial tells you to, which is the 220. And for the input caps, it will be the 0.1. These are 0.47s, they're super large. You want to use a polypropylene or a ceramic. I've had great luck with ceramic and polypropylene. So my recommendation to you is probably use a 0.1 ceramic or a 0.1 polypropylene. These are quite large. You kind of want to avoid these if you're going to use mint tin can as your enclosure. But definitely follow the parts list that, on the TangentSoft tutorial. Follow it down to a T. Make sure you use the same capacitor, resistors, and whatnot. But on with the build. What we're going to do here is we're going to take these electrolytic capacitors, we're going to stick them in here, minding the positive negative. If you look right here, you can see that these are the pins. The little X's, that is where the capacitor will fit through the board. So see, it'll go down here and then it'll come through right here. But if you look, you'll see a negative and a positive, and right here you have a negative and a positive, so it's going to complete the little loop here. Yeah, negative, positive, negative, positive. So we got negative and positive over here. These little X's, as you can see, even on the other capacitor right here, are going to be your pinouts, where the pin goes through the board. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to solder our capacitors in just like this, and then we're going to solder our two resistors, our R1 resistors, and then we are going to test and make sure that we have an even split. Make sure our virtual ground is perfect. That way we have, say we're going to run a 9 volt battery, we have 4.5 from the ground to here and 4.5 from the ground to here. And I'll walk you through that once we get there. So go ahead and mind the positive and negative and solder in your electrolytic capacitors and your two R1 resistors. We'll go from there.